India today is about a $4 trillion economy. We are in 2026. And the current government is forecasting by 2047, we should be about a $30 trillion economy. This is one part of it. The other part, over ISM 1.0 and ISM 2.0, there has been an investment of close to about 1.6 lakh crores. Now, why am I bringing these two inputs together? Fundamentally, we need to understand, for us to become an economy of that kind of a scale in the next 22 years, I think it's going to be fundamentally driven primarily because of technology and innovation. And I don't see any other domain or any other industry that can probably allow us and provide us the scope that probably will have a significant exponential growth at the scale and the speed and the time besides technology. And semiconductor is at that specific moment of truth for us. Now, the kind of investment that I spoke about, 1.6 lakh crores, is just the beginning. It is going to drive further investment, a lot more attraction, and a lot more significant contribution from various sources, not just purely in terms of whatever we heard as of today, from biggest brand houses to technology centers. Now, let me draw some interesting narratives in terms of understanding something that probably will help us get a much more bigger, wider perspective. Let's kind of go back to about 30 years from here. I mean, if people are from semiconductor industry, they must be a lot more familiar. But for those who are not, I think there were two very, very powerful brands that was existing at that point of a time, especially in semiconductor. One was Intel, the other one was AMD. And as we all know, they are the ones who probably were the pioneers in producing processors which went into the laptops, computers, servers, and other computing devices. And if you look in terms of the kind of volumes, probably it was about in hundreds of millions. And now, when you kind of roll back and look at it in the current era, we're talking about close to about 4 billion smartphones across the world, of a population of about 7.5 billion worldwide. Now, when you look in terms of these numbers, especially in the smartphones, the biggest player who produces the processor for such large volume is Qualcomm. Now, of course, Qualcomm, we all know, is just a fabulous design company. And who's manufacturing these processors? It is TSMC, based out of Taiwan. I think they manufacture close to about 65% of the overall processors. The numbers could be much higher, but I think if you look in terms of Qualcomm's market presence, it's close to about 65 to 67%, and the others kind of occupy the rest of the other space. Now, so if you look in terms of the market share for Qualcomm, I think it is close to about 65 to 67%. And of course, TSMC, which is the largest fabrication company, they probably will have a touch point in every single hardware that we have currently in consumption. Now, the components come from various other vendors. The integration of all this to make a phone is done by some other company. The raw materials come from various parts of the world. And you will probably find a logo of one of the popular brands, whether it's Apple or whether it is Samsung. They're all like, more of a marketing company, if you ask me, my perspective, and they get to brand it and sell it across the world. Now, this is a very interesting point for us to note in terms of this ecosystem is been existing as a collaborative players. And the only reason why we could probably see a scale from hundreds of millions of computers from AMD and Intel to the current world of all the smartphones is because of this collaboration and the scale that could probably be possibly happening because of too many players. Of course, each of these players are very significant and very important, even though they're all fragmented, but all of them together is what gives us scale and the kind of capacity, and also increasingly growing much more bigger and faster. Now, when you kind of look in terms of the future, Gartner predicts that close to about 30 billion connected devices are to be existing for us in the next couple of years. Now, who's going to be holding the IPs, or what kind of problems are you going to see? Who's going to manufacture them is something that we should probably wait and watch. Now, the point that I would like to bring in terms of reference, looking at all these parameters, is one, that we as an economy have fantastic opportunities to create our own solutions to address the problems that we have. And it could be smaller smaller community that might consume, but the number of solutions or the problems that you could probably tackle, and especially if you have a manufacturing system, I think that's going to be a future that we can probably anticipate and add to the economic growth that we are trying to forecast. And that is what makes it even more exciting, more more challenging at the same time. And I see the next 25 years is going to be an era that we all are going to be witnessing to watch out for. Now, all these are fantastic and beautiful moments and opportunities that we have in front of us. The most important fundamental question that we certainly need to look in terms of addressing is, how are we going to bring the talent to address this larger ecosystem and the more challenging technology ecosystem? So if you go back and look in terms of the current investment that is done by various companies as of today from ISM 1.0 and 2.0, they're all dependent on the foreign partners for technology and also for the talent as well. I know when I talk to some of the senior executives from these companies, they've claimed that they've been able to spend a lot of money to bring in, expatriate all these experts from various parts of the world who are Indians, to bring them back here, to build a team here. All of this is going to be something that probably it'll be sustainable for the next 3 or 4 years. Then what happens after? We have to build our own technologies. We have to build our own talent. And if you're hoping that we will probably reach out to the universities and colleges for these talents, I don't think that's going to be very much feasible. The fundamental important point that we all need to understand, and I'm sure the industry also understands, is it's not about where we go find looking for the talent. It's about who and how are we helping the ecosystem to build that talent. And that's where we need to understand how are these universities equipped. Even though I do understand some of the premier institutions have built their clean rooms and have a small R&D fabs to kind of experiment, but I think that is not going to be good enough for us to kind of build a much larger ecosystem and fulfill the obligations of the talent. The numbers that I get to hear is that over the next 5 to 6 years, we need to have close to about 2 lakh engineers needed for just the manufacturing side. On design, of course, we have been building a fantastic roadmap. We've been there for the last 25 years, and building the scope for the next 25 years, it seems to be a lot more possible challenges for me. But I think the more bigger challenge and the new challenge that we should probably cope up is to see how we start building the talent for the manufacturing side of it, because you're not talking about merely somebody who's going to understand the process of fabrication or run the OSAT process. It's also about the engineer who understands the chemistry of the gases, the raw materials, somebody who understands the physics of how these equipments are to be functioning, somebody who understands how the buildings are built, right? There is going to be a much more bigger and diversified talent, even including to the extent of having legal experts who understand the technology aspect of it to build the IP protection and the kind of contracts to sign in. So you are going to be opening up challenges and the opportunities across various resources, various domains. And that's where I see a significant, interesting opportunities for all of us to work together, invest together, and build the right kind of talent pool or processes that we can probably build talents and attract engineers to be real engineers working in these kind of environment. And I am very optimistic about the outcomes, because the environment that is created today is more in terms of challenging people to figure out idea or the problem that they can solve, which could be very local and very simple, right? Some of them are challenging, rather they're figuring out how to challenge innovations on space technology, which is more complex. So some of them are working on something on the ground level, on the agri-tech as well. All of these will automatically drive necessity of building talent, exposure, and infrastructure. And I think that's where we see an amazing roadmap. But what is more important for us is to see how we can bring everybody together and focus on this very specific critical input in terms of having the talent, which is going to be more localized, and they will be more excited to work in this part of the geography and build the future economy and technology for us in India. And that's where I see a fantastic next 25 years that's going to be much more enriching than the last 80 years of our economy. Thank you.